we are fresh off election season.
Man, crazy times.
A lot of people have been holding their breath in regards to interest rates and financial markets and all that good stuff. And
who would have thought that we would be here today?
I know.
A week ago, like, it's just crazy.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Who'd have thought? Like I said, people have been holding their breath for months in regards to interest rates and everything that's kind of financially related. Mm-hmm. And you said, Mo, we should talk about the somewhat things in the financial world, given your newfound experience in the financial services industry. So and this is kind of apropos, given the time on the calendar, if you will. Yeah,
it's funny how God moves. It's funny how God works. I've been in a very growth season. I'll put it that way.
Yep.
Over the last couple of years, and I'm grateful to God for those experiences. Grateful to God for like stretching me into the person that I'm designed to be, right? And so, as you know, I've taken that leap of faith. I'm out here in the financial services space, and I'm loving it. I'm loving every aspect of it because it's about growth. And we obviously have a growth mindset podcast, but it's like we've been doing this for 6 years, knocking on the door 6 years, and all of that is really coming into fruition. And it's an opportunity for me to practice what we've been preached about or what people have preached to us. You know what I mean? So like for me, and then obviously a huge component is the ability to help our community.
Yes.
Which is a very, very big sentiment that and benefit that I get to experience, right? Helping lives, helping people's become, financially set, stable, and create some opportunities for some passive income.
Yes, sir.
So I'm excited, man. Actually today we're going to take a peek behind the curtains, over the last couple of months, what I've been doing and really look to the person that's been leading that charge, right? For me specifically. We were very blessed. A couple of years ago, we had Matt Sapala. Shout out to Matt Sapala and the MSM. A couple of years ago, we had him on the show, and it was great interview, great book. I think we both got the book.
Yep.
Fantastic read, Faith Made Millionaire. Definitely encourage visionaries out there. If you have not heard of that, check it out. It's on Amazon. Matt Sapala, Faith Made Millionaire. And so a part of his, a part of the culture, a part of his team that goes out on the front lines is an individual that, I get to work with every day. And rub elbows with every day. And so I'm tremendously grateful that he and his wife have really welcomed me in to the fold and to the family and an opportunity to learn from them. And so I'm super excited, man. And visionaries, I apologize, dealing with a little cold with the change of the weather, change of the seasons, but we're gonna
put on some sleeves, man.
Hey, man, when you gotta let these guns show, baby.
Oh my gosh.
No, but it's amazing, man. I'm so tremendously grateful for this opportunity. We're going to get into who we have on the show, but welcome back to the Vision Lab podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cuffey, alongside my co-host, Mr. Ryan Mosley. The Vision Lab is the official growth mindset of all visionaries worldwide, and we're showing mad love to the cigar community. It's here in the lab where we uncover people's visions and dreams and how those dreams actually come into reality. Folks, it's all about tapping into and becoming the absolute best versions of ourselves through self-discovery, self-examination, and self-actualization. Mo, who we got on the show today?
Cuff, today's guest is a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I believe he's the first person from Birmingham we've had on the show, if I'm not mistaken. Only person I can think of from Alabama is Goldie. Shout out to Goldie, by the way. He is a 13-year veteran of the financial services industry in his own right. He is a senior vice president at PHP. Please welcome, can I call him, what I call him, your mentor / what do you want to call him?
Just call him by his name.
Chris Richardson to the Vision Lab podcast.
Happy to be here. How you guys doing?
What up, and good morning, sir. How are you?
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Man, I appreciate you agreeing to do this. This is a big moment for the show. There's so much to unpack, so much to uncover. We're coming off the heels, in the month of October was Life Insurance Awareness Month. We had some scheduling conflicts that kind of precluded and prevented us from getting you on during that month. But super excited to have you into the lab, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
No other place I'd rather be. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And shout out to Mama E. Yeah. I know she couldn't be here tonight, but we're sending prayers her way. Yeah. Very grateful for both you and her and the stewarding that you guys are doing in this space. So without further ado, brother, I just want to get straight into it, okay? Mm-hmm. So you and I have had an opportunity since August of this year to really get to lock arms and work together and do some amazing things. And before we go any further, I really want to say humbly, I'm just grateful, appreciative. I just think that God is in this, right? And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to learn from you, as well as your wife, and all the folks at PHP. But what we're talking about is something that's very, very important, often overlooked, often with an undercurrent of something negative, but it's really a beautiful thing if you understand what it is, right? And that's life insurance. So let's talk about your. Nobody grows up to say, I want to be a life insurance agent, right? So how did you get involved into this space?
Yeah, first I want to say, throwing it right back to you, man. It's a pleasure to work with people like you. So what we do is not work when you get to work with people that are, like salt of the earth. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. And then in a lot of ways, you surprise me in day-to-days with little small gestures. You're like, dang, this is special. So I appreciate that. So I want to say the same thing to you.
I appreciate
it. But how I got into this industry, man, it was a fluke. Of course, most of us don't come up knowing about money.
Yeah.
And so literally, I go straight into the military right after, high school. So 18 years old, right before graduating high school, I thought I was just going to go to college, and I was just kind of like undecided. My sister graduated from Tennessee State, summa cum laude, valedictorian in high school. But the thing that I saw is that she still struggled financially with a full ride. And I mean, like, while she was in college. And so at that particular time, my mom's health was kind of like up and down. My mom had went through a few things, and then she was dealing with this condition called psychordosis.
Okay.
It's kind of like asthma on steroids, right?
Oh, wow.
But it's horrible. And I remember the pastor that we grew up in the church out there ended up dying from that. Hemorrhage while he was preaching a sermon.
Whoa.
They rushed him to the hospital, and he ended up dying. I never forget this, right? So she was dealing with that condition, and so I kind of felt like I need to be in a position where I can kind of support my mom financially. So just going to school and being a broke college kid ain't gonna cut it. It ain't gonna cut it, right?
So instead, you joined the military.
So what I ended up doing, I was like, let me go get a job, right?
Okay.
So I get out of high school. Like the week later, my aunt's boyfriend at the time got me a job at the Coca-Cola factory, right? So I'm an order builder, and so order builder, like you're getting these tickets coming in from every company that orders Coca-Cola product. And you going and you're getting a truck or you're going around the whole warehouse, picking up the product, then you take it back to a loading spot, put it on a pallet. You build a pallet like you're building a castle, like a sand castle. It's all the way as high as tall as you are, saran wrap it, they forklift it, take it to the truck, and then you start over. So I'm going to work at like 5 p.m. I'm getting off like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning.
You're working 10 to 12.
And I'm 18, and I'm like the youngest guy in the warehouse, probably maybe like about 12 to 14 years. And I'm like, I can't do this. So by like 3 weeks in there, I'm nocturnal. I feel like I got arthritis at 18 years old. I'm like, And so I wasn't even considering going in the military. I had just taken the ass. I literally took, it's funny, you talk about how God is in stuff. God will have you doing stuff that absolutely makes no sense. And you try to give a logical reason for it, but you realize there is none. I remember only taking the college, taking the ASVAB test for the military because I had a teacher, shout out to her name is Miss Hall, and one day they was coming up to do the testing, and she said, well, if you go and take the ASVAB test, which I said, just you do, I got through school, through in the National Guard, go and take the test, and you don't have to come to my class that day. I'm like, roger that. Look at so if I ain't got to go to her class that day, I'll go take this test. I didn't even try to really even attempt to pass the test, but I passed it. So I started getting all of these calls from the recruiters, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And what ended up happening, the guy came home to our house one time. My sister was just moving back from Atlanta, and she was in the house that day. My sister, who's the valedictorian and summa cum laude, and she said, "Hey, I was hearing the recruiter. I think you should really give that an option. I think you should go to the military." And for me to hear somebody who's such a collegiate, excellence, collegiate royalty,
an academic,
to say that, I'm like, I better listen. I may as well listen to this. And so I was like, cool. So I still was like on the edge. And so after about 3 weeks at that warehouse, I'm like, I called him. I said, "Hey man, can you still get me out of here?" He was like, "How soon you want to go?" I said, "I can go tomorrow." I can't get you out that fast, but I can work it. I can work on it and I can make it happen. So like August 13th, never remember it, boom. I get on the flight. We go to Great Lakes, Illinois, and life changed for me. I went to the military from that point.
So, and you got a chance to experience the military during times of war.
Yeah.
How many times were you deployed?
3 times.
Wow.
Three
To where?
unique different deployments.
Where'd you go?
So they all were Middle East deployments. They all were in support of Iraqi conflict and war on terrorism. So my first deployment, honestly, was the shock and awe year, right?
Oh, okay.
Right? So that first year, crazy story, the ship I was on ended up shooting 51 Tomahawks. And the whole shock and awe campaign, our ship was actually second line to actually shoot. And they test these ships and everything all the way to the time to fire. And one of the ships actually didn't pass testing. Our ship gets called up, and then we ended up going in there and shooting like 51 Tomahawks. Crazy.
What does it sound like when one of those fires off?
Well, it's you can hear it, and it's crazy. It's surreal. I don't know if I can make a sound to give you.
But is it a thunderous?
Oh yeah, it's thunderous, and it's actually you can't be outside the skin of the ship because those things are hazardous, and so you can't be in. The ship is secured. So when they go off, what I didn't know is that they don't automatically go off to their target. They linger for a while, they hover for a while, right?
Oh wow!
Wait, what do you mean by that,
man? And this is probably old technology, right? But man, the technology was so sound, and you could probably look this up. You could probably see this now. When a ship is set to shoot Tomahawks, right, or whatever they're shooting, when it goes up, it's gonna hover for a while, and all of the missiles that they're online to shoot that day, once the last one goes up, the next command is given. Then they go in, land, and they hit their target, and they hit their target simultaneously.
I.e. shock and awe.
Yeah.
So they're just sitting. The missiles are just waiting.
They're just once they launch, they're up. And
so you got 50 of these in theory, and they're just all kind of circling, doing their thing.
So the first night was 7. So
Okay.
the first night of the whole campaign was 7 shot that night. And then it was a routine of like maybe a few more days that went on.
Wow.
And that went on.
And there's somebody pushing a button as to when, like, hey, all 7 of you in the air, it's go time now.
Yeah.
So I want to start getting into the mindset.
Yeah.
Here you are. I'm assuming a young 20-something.
18.
18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good Lord.
Basically fresh out of high school,
Out of
wet
high
behind
school.
the ears,
Yeah.
and now you're in a war.
Yeah.
What is your mindset like at this point?
It didn't register that way because, of course, military, some people go to the military. Most people go Marine or Army if you just think, I want to go serve my country. A lot of times when you're going to the military, it's the benefits that you get, right? So it was literally like I go to boot camp. I find out right before I go and get out of boot camp, I'm stationed in Japan, right?
Okay.
And I remember my recruit instructor said, "Hey, Richardson, get over here." He said, "You like Japanese food?" I said, "I like Chinese food, petty officer." He was like,
Close enough.
Never mind.
You should have said,
You
sorry,
like Japanese
I'm
women?
from
I was like, I
Birmingham.
never had a Japanese woman, petty officer.
I'm from Birmingham.
He said, "Well, get used to it because that's where you're going." That's how I found out I'm going to Japan. So I'm thinking I'm going down the road. I'm thinking I'm going to Florida, right? That's what everybody. Oh, I'm gonna get me an apartment in a couple months after boot camp, and next thing I know, I'm going to Japan at 18. So it was surreal. So it was just like everything just back to back. It's like, boom, you're gonna be living in Asia. You're gonna be living in Japan. Boom. And when we literally left, the crazy thing, we went out just for it was like supposed to be like doing like some drills, right? We were gonna go out, be out for 2-3 days. We're just circling around the bay where we're stationed in Japan, and we just never came back. Nobody was prepared for that.
Wow.
Like it was literal guys on the ship because we was under the ship like 107 days without seeing land, and that's really unreal for most people that have been in. It was people in there 20 years that had never been out to sea that consecutive.
Oh my
So when you're
gosh.
out to sea in the military, they're stored up with beer and all of that, right? So if you're underway for more
Good to
than
know what our
45
American
days,
tax dollars are going to.
yeah. So if you're underway for more than 45 days, you can have what we call a still beach picnic. And that means you got barbecue grills on the flight deck and they bring out beer.
A still beach
A
picnic.
still beach picnic, right? So we had two of them because
Because you're out there that
we were
long.
out there that long, man. And so nobody in our ship had that experience because think about it, when was the last time we had a real war? No disrespect to people that were in Desert Storm,
Yeah.
but that was like a conflict. It wasn't a real outright war, right? So nobody. It was new for everybody, from an 18-year-old kid to
50-something.
somebody almost ready to retire, right?
Yeah.
So it literally is like boom. We're out there, we're doing drills. It was people thinking they're gonna go back and see their wife and had events set up, and boom, here you get the command, and boom, next thing you know, you're going closer to the Middle East, going into what we call Fifth Fleet. That changes everything.
So that was the first tour.
Yeah.
And you were blessed. You were
Yeah.
able to come back
Yeah.
stateside, see your family.
Uh-huh.
Are you a changed person, or I mean, you just kind of like whatever?
Not so much at that time because you've seen things, right? And you've experienced some things. So more so than anything, you're just ready to get back because you've been isolated for so long. Because I've been on ground deployments, meaning like boots on ground with the Army. I've been with a Marine Corps deployment and the Navy deployment. The Navy deployment, in my opinion, is the one I don't want to redo anymore. Because
You're out in the water for 107 days.
It feels like jail, bro. You feel like the world is moving on and you left behind. You know what I'm saying?
You're stuck still.
Yeah. And so you're literally just trying to catch up when you get back from that deployment. You know, if that makes sense.
So you, like Cuff said, you do your tours.
Yeah.
So, reality starts knocking like, okay, I'm ready to get out. Well, I'm sure you had the question like internally, okay, Chris, what am I going to do? Like,
Well, actually, he was deployed 3 times.
yes, I'm saying. So he finishes his 3rd deployment, and at some point, okay, I'm getting out of here. Then you, like I said, you had to get into reality. What am I going to do to support myself once I get back on the ground?
Well, so for me, I wasn't even thinking that because I was already having this paranoia about people who I saw got out of the first 4 years, and I saw life wasn't going that well for them, right? And so I'm like, my first 2 years, I can't wait to get back home because I'm homesick. And so, every time I would go home because I lived in Japan, I'm going for like 23 days of vacation.
Gotcha.
And then you go back because it's not even worth it to go home for a week. Right?
Yeah, well, what's the point? But you that's just long enough to get caught up.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks of travel. I mean, it's 2 days of travel just coming from Japan. So I wasn't really thinking about getting out because I had saw what the outcome was for everybody else, and I didn't want it. So my first 2 years, it was like, but maybe about that second year, I started to settle in. I started to like Japan, and I started to appreciate living this life compared to everybody else's life. Because at that time, you got a sample size of people who went to high school with you and had already dropped out of college.
Yeah.
Who had all of this student loan debt, and they're working jobs that you can't see yourself working. So I'm like, man, that's no different than what I was escaping, so there's no reason to go back. So I was thinking like maybe I should stay in and do the full 20 years.
Yeah, make a career out of it.
And the Iraqi deployment, that second deployment is kind of what made me like a military person. Because, no disrespect, I love the Navy and what it does, but like when you do a boots on ground deployment where you're actually in a combat zone and you're going out on missions, you kind of get a different sense of what we're doing. When you're on a ship, you're doing figure eights in the ocean, you're away from everybody. You're like, man, what are we doing out here? But when you're actually dealing with Iraqi people, at the time we were dealing with Iraqi people, we're out bonding with people that are serving with you, that you're out there on missions together. You then have a sense of belonging, if that makes sense. That's different.
It's a purpose.
So I was kind of like gung ho at that time. Like I was literally after my second deployment, I was considering going infantry and actually cross branching. I was literally thinking about going to the Army.
You really wanted to be involved.
Well, so I was a chaplain's bodyguard. So in the military, chaplains can't carry weapons, right, under the Geneva Convention. So they got to have somebody with them that is armed, that's there to protect them in any kind of situation, right? So we're going on missions with infantry. We're going out there, And honestly, I'm like, man, did I get the wrong calling? Like, I was into it, And so I was thinking, like, let me cross branch. I was going to go to the Army. But the lowdown on the Army, I don't like the duty stations that the Army got because they're in the country, right? So I was like, man, if I go to the Army, man, I'm going to be in the boonies, right?
Yep.
I'm giving up living in San Diego. Got L.A. every couple of weeks. I'm over there to go live out in the country. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So the Marine Corps was the best option, but the military doesn't do when it comes to cross branching to the Marine Corps. Marine Corps makes you go back to boot camp.
You got to start all the way.
You got to start all over. So I'm at that time. I'm an E5. I got my own apartment. I'm like, nah, man, I'm not about to go back to E3 pay cut and living in the barracks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I ended up staying put in the Navy, right? So I was literally at that time, to answer your question, I was literally thinking like I'm gonna just stay in. What ended up happening on my last deployment, I got back. My best friend, he's like my brother, was in the military with me. Same ship, first ship. We were in Japan together. We did everything together. We chose to go to San Diego from Japan together. He had started his career in music and started rapping. So I get back. He's got shows going on and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, man, I need you to help me. I'm like, help you do what? I need you to manage me. I'm like, man, I don't know the first thing about managing, but I tell you what, I'll happen to manage you until you can manage to find a manager. How about that? Mm-hmm. And so literally, it wasn't until that where I had a second option where I was thinking like, maybe there's something different than just staying in the military and doing 20 years. So if it wasn't for that diversion right there, I probably would have been a 20-year guy plus that, And so we started doing music. Things started to go well. And because it started to go so well and it started to go well fast, everybody that I knew was like, man, you got to get out. Like, you can't stay in. Like, what you got going on is kind of crazy. People try to do this stuff 10, 15 years and still on the sideline. You guys are, like, actually in there. Mm-hmm. So that's actually what made me get out.
So your best friend.
Yeah.
Is he a well-known artist? Or like, will we know?
No, he's ghost-written for a lot of people. He's actually out of the industry, too. He lives in Thailand now. He moved. He's like, I'm out. I'm out, right? So he lives in Thailand, but he still does stuff. He still works with a lot of people, and so he's kind of been on the back end. Because if you're in the industry, after a while, you kind of get burnt out on it. You see what you see, right?
So this time it's mid-2000s, 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there?
Like 2000, like 2009,
2009,
yeah.
Okay.
8, 9, 10.
And so you're now on the music scene.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was kind of surreal again because it's like,
I mean, you have no, like, were you producing or you were just managing? Or I
was just going to do the managing thing. So I go to the studio and he's like, I'm giving my opinion because I was a drummer since 5 years old.
Okay.
So I'm giving my opinion on stuff and it make a lot of sense. And he started saying, I mean, you should start producing. Whatever. So literally one day we ended up in an argument. Sometimes arguments will make you do something you wouldn't do regardless, right? And so that day I'm like, you know what? I'll go to the Guitar Center. I'll call one of my guys that was a producer, like, hey man, take me to Guitar Center. Tell me what I need to buy. I like empty my bank account on all of this equipment, right?
Try to prove something.
Yeah. No, not really. Just like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. Right? Let me get the real stuff. So I go home. It was Reasons. That's the software I was using, Reasons. And I just started making beats, and within a week, I made my first beat. We recorded it, and simultaneously, we started actually doing something that was real unique. I had a club promoter, former NFL player, that was out doing shows, and of course, you're trying to connect and network. And I'm a good networker, and I didn't realize it until that time, right? Okay. Other than that, before in the business realm, you're just making friends. I was always in that scenario, make a lot of friends. I ain't have too many enemies, so. I'm like, hey, man, what you need us to do? We'll do anything you need us to do. That's what we're saying to him. He was like, man, I got these tickets I got to sell, bro. And last minute, give them to us, right? Mm-hmm. We sell the tickets. We come back with the money. Bro, that's what's up. So he lets us in on his next show. Hey, man, I got this show coming up. Okay, cool. So we're plotting and we're thinking like, hey, what would it take for us to open up for this artist? Well, if you want to be an investor on the show, boom, you can do this. How much is it? Boom, we put our money together. We invest on the show. So it's our actual show. And the craziest thing, our first show that we ever did was Mike Jones. Remember Mike Jones?
Who?
Right?
Come on now.
Right? So Mike was our first show. And the crazy as it seemed, we didn't realize we were creating a business model at the time, but we were. So we kind of fell and stumbled forward, right? And so it's like 2-3 days before the show. I'm calling him. I'm hey bro, what you need us to do? Is everything set? Man, I got a problem right now. We booked Mike's ticket to the wrong airport. We got him at LAX,
And where's
not
he?
San Diego.
Ooh.
Right? So I'm like, okay. And man, we don't have nobody that can go pick him up. Can you pick him up? I'm like, hold on, I can pick him up. Like, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, so we go and pick him up from the airport. We connect. Had a real good connection from the start. And, when any artists would come in town, we're taking them to the barbershops. We're taking them to go do their interviews.
Yeah.
We're taking them to a good shoe spot where they getting free Jordans and all of this kind of stuff. So we always looked out for people. So we didn't realize we were building connections that was strong from that point. And one of the things we didn't do, I didn't bring up, hey, I'm a producer. Because everybody's looking out for people that's trying to find something and get something off them. So
Everybody's got their hand
yeah,
out.
people would just find out. So you produce? Why you ain't saying nothing? Oh man, I ain't here for that. I'm just here to get you from the airport to the show, get you paid, get you out of the city safe. That's all we're here for.
Yep.
And so that kind of like had a lot of respect on it. So that's kind of how our model came. And so every show that we did, we had artists. Our artists were going to open up for the show. So that was a good recruitment tool because people that saw it, people that had talent, they wanted to go work with us. Make sense?
Yeah.
So we're paying for studio time. We got you. You opening up for these big artists like anywhere from T.I. to whoever. And that's kind of how the model had presented itself. And so before you know it, everybody that I knew that was in the military get to the shows. They got VIP. They meeting these people. My only commitment was like, hey, don't make me look bad. Don't ask for no autographs. Don't ask nobody for no money.
Don't try to fight anybody.
Well, I mean, fighting is okay because sometimes you need that. We got in some fights, because you're in the real. Like the real hip hop game is the belly of the beast.
Absolutely,
a lot of people don't understand it. Like anybody that's made it in the music industry,
It's bloody.
Tough.
It's bloody.
Tough. They've been through some stuff, right? So fighting, as I said it now, I want somebody that is ready to go fight because you need that side, right? But just don't make us look bad. Don't look thirsty, right?
Gotcha.
Because I've met a lot of people, successful people, athletes, anything like that. But people look up to you. They look at you like this until you show them that you right here. But once you go right here, you can't go back to this level, high level no more.
Because now you thirsty.
Now you're thirsty.
Yeah,
You're in a
I
different
get that.
category.
I get that 100%.
Right.
So you had a pretty significant or monumental moment while you were producing and managing.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to hear your story a couple times, but why don't you share that life-changing experience and how that propelled you into the financial services space?
So to get into your point, Mo, you asked me like, how did I get into that industry? It was literally the music industry. I would have never got out of the military. So now that I get out of the military, I'm not getting a check every 2 weeks anymore. So I'm like, man, I need to figure out money. I need to figure out like how to do some stock trading or some real estate flipping or something because I didn't have time to go get a job, right?
Gotcha.
So that's when I started to panic. I'm like, I didn't do 401k. I didn't do the TSP thing. So that's when I'm starting to think like, dang, I should have started asking all of them dudes when we would go on a deployment instead of going out, the shop or go out to go waste time or go find women. They were in a computer lab on their computer checking stocks and stuff like that. So I literally got into the financial industry just to kind of learn a little bit about money. I wasn't intending on being an agent at all, right? So I had a girl that was in the Navy with me at my command. She says, hey, what are you going to do when you get out? And I'm like, well, I'm going to school for business. I'm also taking music so I can really learn it on a whole different level, going serious about that. I got my team. I got my artists. I'm just going to go to school to learn more about business. And so she says, well, my church member has a best friend that went to college with her that is a financial executive.
Okay.
She runs an office in Chicago. Would you like to meet with her?
Absolutely.
At that time, I'm like, hell yeah, because I'm asking everybody, mind you, right? And I'm doing this music stuff. So a lot of the people that would invest in shows would be like people that had really strong real estate companies, people that had real successful law firms, cool guys, 30-year-old black dude, right? He's got his mortgage license, but he's got some money, but he still want to be on the scene. So all of these people are the people that I'm around. So as I'm starting to ask everybody I know, hey man, can you teach me something about money? I realized nobody knew about money.
Oh.
And I'm like, dang, athletes, nobody knew about money. So when she said that, I'm like, bet, can I? Yeah, I want to meet with her. And so the day I ended up meeting with her, She was like, look, you can come into our company. This is what it costs to register as an agent, to get your license and all of that. So I was like, okay, so if I could do the registration, I'm open to come to all of y'all trainings, right? She said, yeah. So that was like, okay, cool. So I can come here and learn, because nobody else is trying to give me any understanding on how to learn. I asked one person I knew that works for Wells Fargo's financial advisors, like, what do I need to do? She says, well, you need to get about 12 months of savings, year's worth of savings put away. Like, how you gonna do that, right? You can tell all the people that you pay bills to, give me about 24 months, right?
Yeah, I'll get back to you.
You can't do that, right? Yeah. So I was left with nothing. And so when she gave me that olive branch, I took it. So I'm just like, okay, I'll go to some of these courses when I can. Now, what ended up happening, fast forward, I get out. That was the same month I got out of the military. So like 4 months later is the most critical time in my business, because I'm actually really doing it. And so my most successful week ever in music was the week I left it. I quit.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, shows like Mike Jones, or, you had people that we did, Bobby Valentino, all these Trey Songz, all these different concerts, maybe once a month.
Okay.
Maybe like one every 3 weeks or something like that. But this particular month, in 1 week, I had Rick Ross on a Tuesday night. I had Waka Flocka on a Thursday night, right?
Okay.
And my headliner on Friday night was Nicki Minaj and a Carrie Hilson dual concert, right?
Okay.
So any given month, this would have been a rock star night, right?
Right.
But we're doing this, and this was all in 1 week. Like when you go to a theme park, right?
You hit the lotto
it's
for
at
a
the
week.
end of the fireworks, because that was like fireworks for us, right?
Okay.
So.
And your acts your artists are opening up for each one of those. Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
Connecting, building relationships. So Rick Ross concert was a success. The Thursday night concert was Waka Flocka. And you remember at that time, Waka Flocka,
he was the man.
he was proving himself too. Everywhere he went, he had to go and walk the most dangerous
Neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Click up with the most dangerous hitters and whatever. So that night, man, we get in there, and man, this was the only artist I didn't pick up from the airport. Right? Because, he's going to call in and check in with the people there. So he was escorted probably by like about 100, 200 Bloods. They come in there, right?
I didn't know he was blooding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Major league.
Big time. So they come in there, and we knew the kind of night it was going to be, right? So, of course, we leave the show. My boy that was a engineer had a session set up for him to come and record at the studio. So we leave the show, we go to the studio. And I had to take a few people that was with me home, because they had nothing to do with that. So I dropped a couple guys off, right? I go to the studio. Studio usually got 10 people at the most.
Not this night.
That night, it's like 120 people, right? And I'm like real hitters in there, right? You see people coming up, what's up, man? They giving you these handshakes with, I'm like calling out sets and all this. Right? Hey, who let all these people? Who got the address out to all these people, right? So my boy that owned the studio, he was like, hey, man, this ain't comfortable. We got to get all these people out.
This is not a safe working environment.
This is not safe.
This is not conducive to creativity.
So we rush walk a session. He just gets his verse down. Don't worry about mastering nothing. Just get it down. Boom, let's get you out of here. Hey, we about to all get out of here. That's kind of like the fake, right? Mm-hmm. So Walker leaves, of course the crowd leaves. As the crowd leaves, it gets down to maybe like about 10 people in the studio, like it should have been, right? So maybe 10 minutes later, this guy who owns the studio goes outside to smoke, him and another guy. 15 minutes later, I'm hearing banging on the studio door. It's like a steel door, right?
Okay.
Banging hard. And so the other guy is like breathing heavy. I'm thinking he got shot. I'm a military guy. So I'm sweeping him for blood, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, you good?
All your instincts are kicked in.
Kicking in. He's laying over this car. I'm good. He was just out of breath. He's like, I'm good, but you got to go get him. Like, get him. They got him. So what ended up happening, they're walking, and somebody who was out there kind of scouting to see who they can catch.
So they can pick off.
Yeah. They see these two guys walking, and they pull up on them and try to rob them.
Oh, wow.
So they take off and run two separate ways. The guy who ended up coming to the studio, he ran one way, and my guy who owned the studio ran another way. So me and my brother, we jump in my car, and we go to help him, right? And so we turning each corner. It's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, right? And can't find him, don't see him. We go back into the studio parking lot. He's like, call his phone. I'm like, he's not gonna answer his phone. But anyway, whatever. I call his phone. He picks up. He's like, yeah, I'm hiding behind this street, right here by this train track. Come get me, come fast, right? So I'm like, all right, cool. We jump back in the car, and as we pulling out, we see a police car had pulled this group of guys down. The other group that was in the studio pulled them over. So I'm like, I'm not going right. I'm gonna turn left. I turn left into pitch black darkness. As I turn left, boom, big light, police light, pull me over. And I got 2 weapons in my car. I got a 12 gauge shotgun loaded, and I got a 45 loaded.
Okay.
And this is California, similar to New York gun laws, right?
Well, what are you doing with that?
What are you doing with that? So I didn't know searching procedures at the time, so we fall for it. They search the car, they find the weapons. We're going to jail. So they put me in the car, they put him in another car, so you can get your story straight, right? So I'm just keeping it to the story I know. We were coming to the defense of my boy that owned the studio, right? And literally, this is what happens, right?
Okay.
And the thing about it, I didn't think like a civilian. I thought like a military guy. QRF, quick reaction force kind of thinking, right? What I should have did is call the police. The only smart guy in the studio was an engineer. He called the police, which we should have done, right? And so thankfully the police did intervene, because what if they didn't intervene?
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that verdict would have been.
Somebody would have made the news.
Yeah, right? So the studio, we're sitting outside. The cop pulls my ID and says, bro, you just got out of the military. What the hell are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm just a producer. I know it sounds crazy, but it's 2 and 3 in the morning. I'm working. I'm recording music. And he was like, look, if this is what you got to do, this is the people you got to be around to be successful, I suggest you do something else. And I'm in the back of the car with handcuffs on. I'm like, God, if you get me out of here, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
That's sinner's prayer.
Right? And so I hadn't even got my license yet. So I'm like, man, I'm about to get a felony. I can't even do the music stuff. I mean, the financial stuff.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
So luckily, all of the cops were veterans. It wasn't that he bought my story. It was just probably God speaking through this guy.
They understood it.
He let me go. They took my brother to jail.
Oh.
Right? So I get released. My brother goes to jail, and we kind of keeping a low profile because I don't know who. Because the people that was in that studio was some real like high up food chain type of street guys, right?
Yep.
So I'm keeping a low profile because I don't know who tried to rob them. I don't know who may hear we were coming at them. So I'm like trying to keep a low profile. So the next night, the Nicki Minaj concert, I'm like, I'm not going nowhere, right? But they were playing around with letting my brother out and letting them go out and get bail. So it ended up being that they held them like about 24 hours almost.
Okay.
So close to the end of the night, it's like about 11 o'clock. I'm like, hey, look, bet. I'll go downtown. I'll just post up downtown. So the moment you get out, you ain't got to worry about calling me. I already be there.
Okay.
So I go by the concert, and I didn't even go in. I'm just checking, hey, how the ticket sales looking, how everything's looking. Because concerts, you really never made no money. Right?
Really?
No, you never made no money. Because it would always be something that the venue would pull. Right? Yep. I never made $1 off any other concert. Not $1.
Wow.
And we didn't look at it like that. It was just like promotion money for us to have our people perform. Because at that time, you needed that catalog before any big labels were going to look at you, right? Today is different. You can get away and get in the music industry and be successful in a short amount of time, right? Because you got YouTube, you got everything else. But at that time, you had to go through those
doors.
Not necessarily doors.
Or channels.
But you had to have like this portfolio of things you've done. Yeah.
The checkpoints.
And so, we never made any money. It would always be like 3, 4 in the morning. Everything is all accounted for. Hey, guys, we had a great night. But, man, the bar didn't hit they total, so this comes from our profit. We got to pay that to the venue for the liquor sales that they were supposed to hit, right? All this kind of stuff. So I'm checking all of this. And so my wife now, my wife was in town for that concert, visiting for the first time in that city. And the moment my brother called and said, I'm getting out, they let me out. Where you at? I run to my car, and I ended up crossing paths with my wife at that time. So you think about how God arranges things, and if that wasn't for that, I would have never met her.
Pause. So you're on the way to go pick up your brother
From jail.
and you meet Mama E.
Yeah.
And you stop to spit some game.
I really was like, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And it was just that. And she communicated, and boom, I'm on the way. I got her number really quick. I had to run into the car and go get him. And so literally, that's how it happened.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't have been that. I would have been backstage getting Nicki Minaj. From that point to like,
You'd have been stuck in that wheel.
yeah, I would have been working. You know what I'm saying? Backstage, getting people, because we didn't even have our artists perform that night, right? But it would have been a whole different arrangement had that not happened.
So you go from near-death experiences,
Yeah,
back of a police car, somehow you get let out,
yeah,
pick your brother up from jail, on the way you meet your wife.
yeah. And then you think like, I'm like, am I listening to the right things? Should I just be done with it? That same month, like a week later, the studio I was recording out of gets broken into. So it was like all of the
All the signs.
So two major incidents took place within a 2-week time frame.
And I had a guy that I knew was a colleague. He was a producer. And this guy had a story back in the day. He was recording these artists in San Diego. And these guys were in a gang war or something like that. He didn't know about it. But he's in the studio recording these dudes. These dudes bust through the door, shoot the studio up. He's running out of the back. They shoot him in the back with a 12 gauge.
Wow.
He's on the ground, laying on the ground. And these guys go into the booth. They shoot the rappers, kill these guys, right? And as they come out, he's crawling out. And he could hear the footsteps because his ear's on the ground, literally. And he says he heard the footsteps coming back. So he just plays dead. If he hadn't played dead, they would have shot him again. And so he's telling me this story. Of course, the guy was well and everything.
He's walking?
Oh, man, he's good. But I'm saying he told me that story. So all of these things coming back, I'm like, man, do you really got to really do this? Is this what you're going to be in? Like, we got out of this situation.
Is this the game you want to play for the rest of your life?
You done survived 3 tours.
Yeah. And then to come to this, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, I come from a family where a lot of my cousin called me today. My cousin is like my best friend. I'm on the phone with him today. He's been in jail since we was 16, right? And I'm like, I come from a family where I escaped going to jail. I'm about to end up in jail for somebody else's stuff. So I'm like, I'm done with the music industry. And all of the other things was like the writing on the wall. So I get out of that, and I'm like, can I get my license? And at that time, I'm like, whatever that I need to do, I'm meeting every office appointment. I'm going to every training. I'm locked in. That's how it happened.
What a whirlwind,
man! I'm telling you, and I love.
I survived 3 tours of combat and getting shot at just to get back home to get shot at.
Yeah,
and be in street fights with gang members.
Yeah,
okay.
This is what I love about podcasting, and we talk about it a lot of times that you don't know who in the grocery store you could be running into, right? You don't know their stories and what they've gone through, but thank God. Yeah. Because it turns out so beautiful after this. And so here you are, you've now made that decision to get out of the game. Yeah. You got your financial services license, but you ain't doing nothing with it. Right? So walk us through like kind of starting this out. And I really want to start with why was it important? And the truth may be, this is the only option I had at the time.
And, it kind of was because I'm going to school, right? Because you got the GI Bill. I'm going to school, but I'm like, either I go back in the military as an officer, right? Or I got to go out and find something else. I was kind of done with that 9 to 5. I was like, I can't do another employee position nowhere. So, what ended up happening, I'm broke at that time because I spent so much money on 3 concerts. We got to pay 3 artists, right? I'm broke. I mean, broke. And I'm not getting a check coming in at the time, right? So the lady who was running the office in Chicago, she flies out to San Diego, and she says, hey, we got a convention coming up. Can you go? I'm like, I'm broke. I can't go. She was like, look, you don't have to go, but you have to go. And so I only promised to go because she said, you got to go. And I made a promise to her. I wasn't even really making it to myself. And so I go to this convention. I'm broke. Somebody paid half of my plane ticket costs. And one of my best friends, I got him going with me. We went to the convention. I was broke. I go to the convention. I leave California with $38 in my bank account. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. But I'm going to do it, right? So I get to the hotel, and you know how they say, something told me, right? Something told me, go check your account. So I go check my account, and it's $3,000 got deposited in the account.
Oh.
Right? So at the time, I'm thinking like $38. This ain't $38 to eat with. This is like 38 emergency dollars if something, whatever.
Something
right?
comes up.
So I had came up with this script. I had never fasted in my life, but I'm like, if people ask me, "You hungry?" I'm gonna have to say something like, "Man, I'm too excited to eat, man. I don't even have an appetite. I'm excited, right?" So the first thing I thought, I can go eat. So the first thing I do, I go move the $3,000 to another checking account because I'm like, clearly this got to be somebody else's money, and I'll give it back to them after I come off of this trip. But now I can go eat, right? But it ended up being my money. It was a back pay that I wasn't even expecting to get.
Look at there.
And it's the funny thing about it, like God will put you in the most ridiculously tough situations to test if you're gonna show faith, or you're gonna trust, or you're gonna step into it. And I was like stepping into it.
You had no clue that you're gonna get a $3,000 check.
No. And I'm in New Jersey, coming from California. So
Need
I go to
every
that
penny.
convention, I'm locked in, and there was this guy spoke, and the way they spoke, man, and I had never seen people living this kind of life in anything other than like sports or music. One guy gets on stage, he's showing his house, he's next door neighbors to Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. Yeah, our kids, we carpool. Sometimes we drop them off. This is my life, right? The guy went to school, USC, got a degree, ended up working at Coca-Cola. I'm like, I can resonate with that. And he said when he would go to, high school functions and college functions with his alumni, what do you do? He'd tell people, I sell Coke. Like Coca-Cola, I sell Coca-Cola, right? But he's like living in this neighborhood, he's living this kind of lifestyle. The other guy gets up, he had just bought, like, I think it was like Tom Brady or somebody's house, rebuilt it, and just bought a Bentley for his wife. I'm like, hold on, these guys are making that kind of money. And it wasn't materialistic, right?
You're just the fact, like the financial freedom of it all.
winning.
Yeah, but I'm already in the dream mode. Like, I got in the music industry, I'm like that close to touching what I'm thinking. Like, I wanted to be able to take care of my mom and have that type of life. I always was a daydreamer. And I thought I was weird as a kid because I could get along by myself and just purposely like daydream. You know what I'm saying? About what I wanted life to be like. Having a vacation where you fly everybody in your family and you do a family reunion, you pay for everything. I had that mindset,
yes,
right?
Lord. Yes,
so
Lord.
after you've got to that scenario where you think you can get it, you can't just give up on it. So I just got to find another avenue. And I'm not thinking this is the avenue. I'm thinking I'm just going to learn financial literacy. So I get to this convention, it's just stuff you couldn't make up. You couldn't explain. And it was one guy get up and he said, who told you can't have the red and the blue? Who told you couldn't have the house in the mountain and one on the beach? Who told you this? So you're messed up. Somebody told you couldn't. And that was the first time I had people define the odds of how we think, speak. And I came out of that convention like wired. I'm like, I got to get my license. I got to go. And I really didn't stop looking back from that point. I didn't look back from that point. That's what did it.
So now that we're at the crux, Mr. Richardson, what do you do?
So what I simply do, you can sum it up in three things. The number one thing we do is we help people escape challenges where that may be you went to school, you got a degree, the degree didn't give you the life and the income you thought you were going to get. What do? Do you go back to school and go get into another 6 figures of debt to go get another $7,000 added on to your annual salary? No, that ain't an option maybe, right? And you already got the debt that you had before, right? So you kind of in a crossroad. Me, myself, I'm in a crossroad. So what we focus on doing in our industry is providing people financial options to get out of the traps that they found themselves in, right? And you think about it, people don't know what a scam is. They think they do, but they don't know. In my opinion, the biggest scam is college education in terms of the cost it costs to go, the tuition. Like if you look at most of these universities, they're well endowed 100 years in the future, meaning if they didn't take another payment for 100 years, they wouldn't
They'd still be okay.
Right. And so why is it that college education has a 7% interest added to it every year? It's going to go up by 7%. And so these people still going to school because of this challenge, right? So what ends up happening is now they're stuck. They're like, I got this student loan debt to pay off. I don't have the option to retire, right? Because by the time I catch up and pay this off, I realize I missed 20 years of putting money aside and having opportunities that could have got me financially independent to retire.
That's right.
So what am I going to do? Work for the rest of my life? So when that epiphany goes off, those are the people that we help, right? And we do workshops a lot that help them have that epiphany go off. And then that light bulb goes off where they go from taking the blue pill to the red pill and they realizing I got to do something different. Make sense? So we help people that are in that space, right? And the challenge is on today's salary, a lot of people can't
break away.
They can't break away.
Yeah.
So where we focus a lot of our attention is that there's so many people in America that need financial help. We don't have enough people to go out there and help them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask a very, the first word that comes to mind is rudimentary question. And that is, why are so many Americans in financial discord?
Because it's the one thing that, it's three things we should have been taught by parents that nobody teaches. And I'll give them to you in order. To understand your faith and understand that it is a growing process for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a Christian, and you know most people, their Christianity and their practice never changed from the time they were 7 years old, 9 years old, and got baptized.
Because you get programmed.
You get programmed.
Yeah.
So really helping people understand there's a way deeper dimension to that. And it's just a graduation level, and graduate this level until you probably get to heaven. That one is, and the second one is married right.
Say it again?
Married right.
Married right.
We don't teach that.
That's true.
Now think about it.
Believe me, I know.
We're in America, and a lot of people they frown on arranged marriages, right? But in reality, those people knew something that a lot of people didn't understand.
I would venture to guess, and I don't know this. This is literally off the cuff, no pun intended. Those arranged marriages probably have a higher success rate.
Yes.
Than the freedom to choose who you marry.
Yeah. And then the third one is teaching and understanding money, right? So let's go to the second one. The highest and most successful society in the world is the Indian culture.
I would not doubt that.
Right? And you think about it, it might be higher now, but do you know 60% of all hotels are owned by the Indian community?
Mm-hmm. And by Indian, you're not talking about Native American. Just want to clear that up.
The continent of India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sorry, the country India, excuse me.
India is a continent.
No,
it's not. Asian.
Asia's a continent.
Yeah, Asia's a continent. India's a country.
But guess what? What they have that we don't think about is that most houses, they have 3 generations living in the same house.
Yep.
Right?
I live in Las Colinas. I can attest.
Yeah.
Well, I can attest.
When the wife gets married to the husband, they move in with the husband. And what happens is a mentorship process on how to marry each other and get along with each other and better yourselves. Make sense? Mm-hmm. We didn't teach that. We didn't know that, right? So a lot of times people who are in marriages, it can be detrimental to their spirit, but it could also be financially detrimental. People spend $40,000, $50,000 on a wedding. They already got student loan debt. 3 years later, they got the student loan debt, $50,000 down the drain, and they got to split half of everything that they had when they get a divorce.
And they're not making any money.
Mm-hmm. And they're not the same person that they used to be because spiritually, they diminished from what they went through in the marriage. So the success rate that they have has diminished also.
And they're with a partner, like that, when the challenges of life ultimately present themselves, which they will for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like no matter if you marry right or not, life is just life. There's just some things that are just gonna happen.
Yes, sir.
You're in a situation where you're with somebody who does not have the intestinal fortitude, shall we say,
there you go,
to navigate those waters.
Yeah.
And I see where you're going.
The selection process is paramount.
Yeah.
And we laugh tongue in cheek because obviously we're here in Dallas.
Yeah.
You're now a adopted Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
So you understand the selection process is very, very important.
Goodness gracious. God bless the Cowboys.
Just to bring it to a sports metaphor. But so you help people understand how money works.
Yes.
The money game.
The money game.
You know, one of the things I love about the conversations that we've had is this crusade. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a unique but appropriate word because it is a crusade. Very similar to the crusade of sharing the gospel of Christ, right? So what is this crusade all about?
Yeah, so the crusade is really helping people understanding, help them have an understanding of how to use money and not be used by money. So we know how to go to work, right? And take all of our money and spend it on bills. I remember I had this one lady sitting in my office. This lady was like 20 some years older than me in San Diego. And I was like, so what are your dreams? She was like, I just want to be able to pay my bills. And I was like, so your dreams is to pay your bills? And I bet the person you paying your bills to dreams ain't to pay their bills.
Sure. No, of course not. It's way bigger than that.
And she was like, and 2 days later she came back and she said, I'm so embarrassed for my answer. I didn't even realize it. Like, you could be my son and you just taught me something, right? Mm-hmm. So it's for them to understand how to create a budgeting system month to month so they get away from being paycheck to paycheck, to graduate from that to having 3 months, to having 6 months, to having 12 months of living expenses put away. And it's a game changer if they can even accomplish having 12 months of living expenses put away.
100%. I mean, especially with where the economy is right now, inflation. We just had a new president, be elected. There's so much that's going on. I mean, I'm on Instagram and I've seen posts about like the 1990s and talking about like gas was like 87 cents a gallon or milk maybe $1.25 or whatever it is, right? And like, you're having people, where the country is right now, people are literally making life decisions against groceries or against gas, against putting clothes on their children's backs, against, paying an electric bill versus a water bill. One of them, like, which one am I going to do this month? And so you afford these people the opportunity to get beyond that.
To change that.
So, and to change it. How?
Well, the thing is, first is the simple understanding that you got to treat your household like a business, right? A business gets in business to be profitable. If you're not profitable, what are you? You're 501c3, right? And you're taking money and you're asking people to donate, right? And we're not doing that because you're working for the money you're going out there and making. But a lot of people trade their income to just live. And they didn't realize, even though you may not be a business, you are a business within it because there's a business contract with the employer. So the first thing is to help them understand that job should allow them to be profitable. And if they're not profitable, the first thing we got to do is help them understand how to run their household like a business. So I encourage multiple bank accounts. Each bank account is assigned for different expenses. And so you
similar to a business.
Yeah, you ask the average person, how much do you make in a year? They can't even tell you. They can only tell you when the recruiting interview went down what HR repeated their salary was going to be, but they don't know down to the dollar. Right? They got to pull up their earning statements or LES if it's military and look at it, and they definitely can't tell you how much they spend. But Walmart, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, can tell you down to the dollars they spend on a daily basis.
On everything.
On everything. Why? Because they have people they have to report to, investors, right?
Shareholders and all.
Shareholders, right?
All that.
Their HR can literally tell them, this is how many people you can hire, this is how many hours you can allow them to work.
I bet the board of directors meeting for Walmart is quite interesting.
I bet it is.
I would love to be in fly on the wall.
Yeah, that's real interesting.
But look, is it easier to run a Walmart or running your household with that same practice?
It should be the same.
It should be the easier. Because you don't have the challenges they have, the variables that they have.
Yep.
So it's that help everybody run their household like a business. And when they can get to that understanding, they move from being in the red to the black. And now as they can actually start to accumulate money, now opportunities can come. Because you won't save yourself into financial independence. You can just save up money so that opportunities come.
And then you can take advantage of it.
You take advantage of it.
Yes, indeed.
Like
if you're lucky enough to be able to save.
Yeah, like this whole word recession. Like, we're about to seriously see what's going to happen after the elections are over. Now, what's about to really happen, right? I've heard it's like 4 million foreclosures that have been sitting that haven't been processed yet. Who knows what's going to happen, right? But a lot of people think recession is a negative word, but it's just a word.
It's a market correction.
Right. It's a market correction, and depending on how you're positioned financially, it could be a positive word or a negative word.
Yeah, it's all where you are on that graph. If you're on the left side or the right side of the quadrants. Right side. I think the question that a lot of visionaries want to know is, well, why is this important to you? Like, Chris Richardson, you go make your money. But why do you want to help those that are quote unquote less fortunate?
Because you asked a great question. Nobody wakes up and say, I want to be an insurance agent.
Right.
It's a calling. And once you really start to examine what God put you in this world for, then you got to take on what that job is. And so I've been given this position and given this responsibility. And as you start to learn it, you can attest to it. It's like if I grew up rich, right? And then I was just put into this industry, it'll be a different passion or it'll be a different aspect. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't, I'm like, man, I'm going out there and helping the family that's raising the 7-year-old version of me. That opportunities could have been a lot. Like when I got into talking about money, I asked my dad, I said, he said, man, I wish I would have had a mentor. I never even heard that word until I'm in my 50s and 60s, the word mentorship. Right. I was like, okay, so what would you have wanted a mentor to teach you? He said, well, number one, teach me how to be better with my money. Number two, teach me how to be better with women. And my dad, then,
I like your dad.
I got 4 brothers.
I like your
3
dad.
different women. And I'm like, I can attest to all of that, make a lot of sense, right? But you're looking at it and you're saying, what? I remember him saying this, man, if my dad, which is your granddad, would have knew this, and my granddad, which is your great granddad, would have knew this, imagine where we would have been. That's what he said.
Imagine what we could have passed on down the line.
We could have passed on, right? Yeah. So, man, we're trying to think about this. You see what the Rockefellers have done. And they're an outlier because there was a lot of family that had equal to wealth that they had, but it went to ruins, like the Vanderbilt family. You went to the University of Vanderbilt. Right, but
University.
Think about what's about to happen in this next century, right? As so many people are going to take these transcripts and apply it with their own family. And they may not be able to do it with their brothers because it's weird. The average person who thinks like us, you and your brothers are on a whole different planet. Like, they don't think like you, like, hold on, we're brothers, right? But you don't have this vision and this mindset. But it's so many people that's going to take this transcript and apply it. Think about all of the families that are about to spin off with using these manuals of how to build wealth, 5 generations deep, right? Like Proverbs 13:22, right? A good man leaves an inheritance not for his kids, but for his kids' kids. Mm-hmm. Meaning that by default, your kids should be good, but you're really doing something if your grandkids are good, meaning that you may never see
the fruits of your labor.
There you go, right? But that's the concept, and that's how we change it.
So the problem that we have in society is that we live in this microwave society or vending machine mentality. Mm-hmm. We think that if we put X amount of dollars in, we get in return 10X, 20X, whatever. Is this a get-rich-quick scheme?
What a get-rich-quick scheme?
The insurance game.
Nah, man. So I tell you what's a get-rich-quick scheme. The lottery system is a get-rich-quick scheme. Who gets rich? Only the government, only the states, and only the people that has a profit off of what happens. The lottery winners don't get rich because 90% of them, what ends up happening?
They blow that money.
There you go. So the money goes right back. They said, I remember hearing this was so crazy. They said, if all of the wealth was accumulated in the world, now this was like years ago.
Yep.
At that time, they were saying it's so much wealth in this world that everybody could be issued out $1 billion. It's probably more now.
Good Lord.
Because more money has been printed and everything. But they said just under 10 years, that money would find itself back in the hands
of the
that
people who
it
issued
came from.
Yeah.
So that's the scam. That's the get rich quick scheme. It's to not teach people money. Like when we were in elementary school, we went to middle school, that's when they started teaching home economics. What did we learn in home economics?
How to balance a checkbook.
I didn't.
I did.
I can tell you the things, but it's not appropriate for the air.
Yeah, it ain't.
I think that's called family development.
Man, we learned how to bake cakes.
There's a lot of that.
We learned how to bake cakes. It was all home.
Shout out to Miss Me C.
Yeah. It was nothing about economics. It was nothing. I wish it was balancing the checking account. Maybe in Texas.
Yeah, we had. I remember we had a banking program.
In some of our classes, and I don't know if it was middle school, but I mean, obviously we don't use checks like we used to. But like, we learned about that stuff, but it's not taught.
Yeah. So when I was in San Diego, I connected with a friend of mine. He was a high school teacher. He got me in there. I started teaching these financial classes to like 11 and 12th graders. And it was awesome. But what if everybody took that and they applied that to every school system in the country? Because we can't depend on them to change it. And granted, the schools probably don't have it in their wherewithal to teach it. Like, think about it. You go to college. The person that's teaching your business class is a professional professor. That means he probably only read about business. He's not in business, but he's the one teaching business.
Yep.
Right?
It's interesting because like you said, is it within their purview to even teach that stuff? I remember reading an article on John Calipari when he was at Kentucky, and now he's the coach at Arkansas. And, his whole thing, one and done. Like, I'm getting your kid ready for the NBA in 6 months to a year. But he said he got to the point, he saw it. He's a trailblazer in a lot of ways, but he's like, okay, if your kid comes here, it's going to be mandatory. He's going to take some type of business, accounting, or finance class. Like, I know your son's only going to be here for barely a year anyway. You're going to at least take one of those classes so you at least have some type of baseline understanding when it comes to you getting this NBA check, and at least have a somewhat of a starting point versus me just throwing you out there in the ocean and not you having no idea what direction to go in.
That's right. That's right. No, I think, we talk about Crusade, right? I think PHP, people like you, are on the forefront. They're in the field, right? Battling to help others, right? Going out and obviously you're a military guy. You're rescuing injured soldiers, right? And helping them to understand that there's another way. There's a better way. I think it's appropriate at this time for us to go ahead and give you the opportunity for you to share your social media handles. How if this resonates with anybody, how can they get a hold of Chris Richardson? To be a part of this crusade.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Chris Rich Kingdom. And also just look me up on Facebook. You're gonna find me on Facebook, same. And so also really in a deeper dive of like reaching out, have them reach out to you.
100%. And y'all know y'all can get a hold of me at the Vision Lab podcast, but this for us in the platform, for you jumping into the lab, like this is everything, bro. Like I think that people need to understand that we know what it's like to try to figure out which bill you're going to pay. How when you got 2 or 3 kids that you're trying to push through school, high school or whatever, right? We understand what that's like, and so that expressing that there is additional opportunities, and there's still a lifesaver. There's still help that is out there. It doesn't mean that, and I think the one thing I do want to clear up, it doesn't mean just because you start, you're going to be successful. You got to put in the work. You got to put in the work. You got to do the things, right? But that's with anything, right? But knowing that there is a viable solution that will never go away. Yeah. Because the last time I checked, and notice that we haven't really talked about the product of life insurance, because it's more of a concept.
It's a concept.
The thought process.
It's a thought process. It's a concept. Intangible. It's a mentality, like that people have to have. And so, like, I just want to encourage all visionaries. If you have questions, deeper questions, want to just do a one-on-one consultation with you. Yeah. Please reach out to this brother. Like, he is the salt of the earth. On behalf of the Vision Lab, I'm gonna give you my stamp of approval, along with Matt Sapala, right? Like, there's some opportunities that exist for people to get out of the rat race, for people to get out and afford the visions, the dreams, the goals, the aspirations that they have, not only for themselves, but for their family, their kids, etc. Yeah. And so, man, we're tremendously grateful for you to share your story. Coming up through the military ranks and through music, and now being in the financial services industry, helping to impact so many different lives. And there's a check on the other side of that. Obviously, you're sharp. You know what I mean? But it's about people helping people.
It is.
It is. So, in case you didn't know, Chris, you're in a magical time machine, right? And we ask these questions to every one of our guests that jump into the lab. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to kick it over to you and come back to me, okay?
All right, go ahead.
So, what advice would Chris Richardson be giving himself from 5 years ago? So if you look back 5 years ago, what advice today are you giving yourself from 5 years ago?
If I can go back to the 5 year,
You today
5
is
year
looking
younger.
back at you 5 years ago. What are you telling him from the future?
time management.
Mm.
Be more delicate and more conscious of your time, and that's the most important asset. So time management, that applies to your kids, that applies to your wife, that applies to your business, that applies to the people you help. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking at right now. How can I really make sure I'm on it when it comes to appreciating the time and valuing it and doing the most with it?
I'm surprised you wouldn't have said come to Dallas sooner.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, that all goes with it. Man, I love Dallas.
This
bro.
dude here, let me tell you something. It's not a day that we don't interact that he doesn't say he loves Dallas.
Awesome. Glad
He
to
loves
hear it.
Dallas.
And you know what I said? I promised God that, because for me, I look at Texas like the promised land, man. When I was in the military, people that was from Texas, when they would get out, where we were in California, Japan, hey man, what are you gonna do when you get out?
I'm going back home.
And I didn't understand it. And so I got here, I was like, I now know what they
Going
mean.
back home.
So I said to God, because I felt like in the past I had a little bit of ungratefulness, like grouch or whatever. But I was like, I'm done with that for the rest of my life. I'm gonna have gratitude, and I'm gonna make sure it's vocal. So that's why I'm always saying what I say about living here.
You know, there was a post that Gary Vee put out a couple of weeks ago at this point, at the time of this recording, but it was a picture of a rotten orange next to a bunch of oranges. Is that right? Like oranges in bunches?
I think you were correct. I think I know where you're going.
So there was one orange that was completely molded, rotten, or whatever. And you could see in the picture, the one right next to it had started to take that on, right? And then you had the other, I don't know, 5, 8, whatever, oranges that were still there. And the point of his post was, be careful who you surround yourself with, because you're impacting how you're going to be, right? And so the reason why I bring this up, because I'm so tremendously grateful for both you and your wife, the folks at PHP, because that and it works in both ways, right? Like positive or negative, right? You can be a negative Noah,
Nancy.
right? Nancy, whatever. Or you could be a positive Patty or whatever. Yeah. But like in that orange example, like I'm surrounding myself with people like you, so I know that there's only great things that are to come, and that's just a true testament to your character, to the wisdom that you express on a daily basis, and for you just doing the things the right way. And so I do want to give you your flowers. That's really big right now. So I want to make sure you get your flowers and the way that you go about doing things.
You got to have a tribe.
100%.
Absolutely you do. Last question.
No, second to last.
Second to last question.
Yeah.
It's you, and there's an imaginary round table. There are 5 other seats at the table. You get to have whoever you want, dead or alive. The only stipulation is we put on that is you can't have God at your table. That's too easy. Who wouldn't want to talk to him? But outside of that, dead or alive, who do you want at your table?
Dead or alive? It's gonna be a crazy answer. Okay. So the guy who's really probably been the most instrumental in my life recently, over the last couple of years, is my spiritual mentor. His name is Prophet Lovey, out of LA. He's at that table.
Okay.
The guy who really introduced me to a whole different understanding. Never met the guy in person, and there's a lot of things that I've learned from this guy. It's like Prophet out of Nigeria was a guy by the name of TB Joshua.
Okay.
He's sitting at that table. Patrick B. David sitting at that table.
There's 3.
3.
2 more.
You got 2 left.
More. Dead or alive?
Yep.
Man, I'm gonna hit you with crazy one. I want Moses at the table.
There we go.
All right.
I want Moses.
Talking about the promised land.
Yeah, and I want Prophet Elijah at the table.
This is a very interesting table.
A lot of prophets.
I'm telling you.
You're gonna be able to tell what's in front of you.
I'm telling you.
That's who I want at the table.
Be able to see it all.
Yeah.
All right, one more time. There's your camera.
4 prophets in PBD.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There's your camera.
Yeah.
One more time. How can our visionaries get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram, Chris Rich Kingdom, and also if they can't find me, they can always reach out to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to go back to my first question.
Yeah.
The second part of that question is, so we already talked about what advice you would be giving yourself from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice would the older version of yourself, what advice is he giving you today?
The older version of myself.
He's looking back at you today in 2024, November 2024.
The 5 years from now, what's that guy telling you?
Get to work in every aspect, as a father, as a husband, as a businessman, as a son of God. Get to work.
I love that. I love that. Last question of the.
Hope he says, I appreciate what you did.
There you go. Yeah, he will. He will. Last question of the episode. If you were a book,
Yeah.
what would be the title of your book?
Title of my book. Called.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
That's good. You got an exclamation point or a period just out on the punctuation? I'm curious.
Exclamation point.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Chris, you know how I feel about you, brother. Like, thank you so much for jumping into the
appreciate
lab.
this.
This is dope. You know, visionaries, remember, each one of our guests are dropping nuggets of wisdom on the tread of life. Ultimately, my friends, it's up to you to pick them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ryan Mosley. He is Ryan Cuffey. Thank you again to our guest, Chris Richardson of PHP. And we will see you guys next time on another great episode of the Vision Lab podcast.
Blessings.